Admiral HFY stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, watching the blue-green world grow larger on the main screen. This was his 847th conquest. By all calculations, it would be his easiest. The Krillian hegemony had perfected the art of war over 3,000 years. They did not conquer through brutality or destruction. That was wasteful and primitive. Instead, they conquered through demonstration, show overwhelming force, offer reasonable terms, and accept the inevitable surrender. It was clean, efficient, and it had never failed. HFY's fleet contained 1,000 dreadnoughts, each one larger than anything these humans had ever built. His ships could crack continents and boil oceans. The humans had managed to reach perhaps a dozen star systems with their crude technology. They were barely more advanced than the Stone Age civilizations that still existed in some forgotten corners of the galaxy. Admiral, his second officer, Commander Ithral, approached with a data pad. We have completed our analysis of the human military capability. HFY took the pad and scanned the information. Human ships were small, lightly armed, and powered by primitive fusion engines. Their largest vessel was smaller than a hegemony escort frigate. Their weapons could barely penetrate hegemony shields. By every military calculation, the humans should surrender the moment they detected the hegemony fleet. How long until we reach the first human settlement? HFY asked. 17 hours, Admiral. The planet is called New Olympia, population approximately 2 million. They have orbital defense platforms, but nothing that could threaten even our smallest vessels. HFY nodded. The pattern would be the same as always. Arrive in overwhelming force, demand surrender, accept submission, and move on to the next world. The humans would resist at first, as all species did. They would fire their primitive weapons and watch helplessly as they failed to damage hegemony ships. Then reality would set in and they would surrender. The hegemony had refined this process with 846 other species. Some surrendered immediately upon seeing the fleet. Others required a demonstration. The Vorthak, with their crystalline technology, had lasted 3 days before accepting client status. The Zephyrians, despite their hive mind coordination, had folded after a single battle. Even the warrior culture of the Thexians had eventually seen reason. Humans would be no different. 17 hours later, the hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Olympia system. The effect was always impressive. One moment, empty space. The next, 1,000 massive warships blocking out the stars. Open a communication channel to the planet. HFY ordered. Standard first contact protocol. The channel opened, and HFY began the speech he had given hundreds of times before. Humans of New Olympia. I am Admiral HFY of the Krillian hegemony. Your system is now under our protection and authority. You have 1 solar day to surrender unconditionally. Comply, and your people will be integrated peacefully into our civilization. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate why resistance is futile. The response came back almost immediately. What HFY heard confused him. It was laughter, not the nervous laughter of fear or the bitter laughter of defeat. It was genuine, amused laughter, as if someone had told an unexpected joke. "Sorry, who are you again?" came a voice with a strange accent. "Did you say you want us to surrender to you?" HFY frowned. This was not how first contact was supposed to proceed. Perhaps the humans had a translation error. I repeat, this is Admiral HFY of the Krillian hegemony. We have conquered 846 star systems. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences. The laughter came again, even louder this time. "Buddy, I don't know what rock you crawled out from under, but you just made a big mistake. This is New Olympia, and we don't surrender to anybody." Commander Ithral looked at HFY with confusion. "Admiral, their response does not match any known surrender protocol. Perhaps their translation systems are malfunctioning." Before HFY could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the bridge. "Admiral," the weapons officer called out, "the humans are launching attack craft." On the main screen, dozens of small ships were rising from New Olympia's surface. They were pathetic things, barely armed mining vessels and cargo haulers, but they were heading straight for the hegemony fleet with obvious hostile intent. "This is impossible," HFY said. "They can see our fleet. They must understand they cannot win." The human ships opened fire. Their weapons sparked harmlessly against hegemony shields, exactly as predicted, but instead of stopping their futile attack, the humans pressed closer. Several of the mining ships ignited their engines to full power and rammed directly into hegemony vessels. The damage was minimal. Hegemony ships were designed to withstand asteroid impacts, but the gesture was unprecedented. Admiral Ythral said, his voice uncertain. They appear to be evacuating their civilian population while simultaneously attacking us. This behavior pattern is not in any of our databases. HFY watched in growing confusion as more human ships launched from the planet's surface. Every vessel that could fly was joining the attack, from military patrol boats to civilian transports that had been hastily armed with mining lasers. They had to know they were going to die. The mathematics were simple and obvious, but they kept coming anyway. Destroy their orbital defense platforms, HFY ordered. Perhaps a demonstration will restore their sanity. The hegemony fleet opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced out and vaporized the human defense stations in brilliant explosions. Humans should have stopped fighting. They should have seen the hopelessness of their situation. Instead, more ships launched from the planet. Admiral, the communications officer, reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the human planet." "Put it on speakers." A different voice came through this time, calmer but no less defiant. "This is Governor Martinez of New Olympia. You want our world? Come and take it. But understand this. Every human you kill will cost you. We're transmitting our defense plans and your fleet positions to every human settlement in known space. You might win here, but you'll pay for it." The transmission cut off. HFY stood in silence for several minutes, processing what he had just witnessed. In 846 previous conquests, no species had ever responded to overwhelming odds with laughter and defiance. The humans were either insane or operating under a completely different psychological framework than any other species the hegemony had encountered. "Admiral," Ythral said quietly, "orders?" HFY looked at the tactical display. Human ships continued to attack his fleet, dying in futile but determined waves. Their weapons could not harm hegemony vessels, but their persistence was troubling. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "Full suppression protocol. Destroy all resistance and secure the planet." But as he gave the order, Admiral HFY felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. Uncertainty. The humans were not behaving like any species he had ever encountered. They were supposed to surrender when faced with impossible odds. Instead, they had laughed and started loading their guns. What kind of species did that? 6 months had passed since the conquest of New Olympia, and Admiral HFY was beginning to question everything he thought he knew about warfare. The hegemony had captured 17 human settlements during their systematic advance toward Earth. By all military standards, they were winning decisively. Human ships were destroyed, human worlds occupied, human resistance crushed at every turn. But something was wrong. "Admiral," Commander Ythral entered the bridge with another troubling report. "The human settlement at Kepler Station has refused our surrender demand. They're laughing again." HFY felt his stomachs twist. Every human world responded the same way. No matter how many ships the hegemony brought, no matter how obviously hopeless the situation, the humans found it amusing. They would laugh, make jokes, and then start shooting. "What are they saying this time?" HFY asked, dreading the answer. Ythral consulted his datapad. Quote, "Another Tuesday, another alien invasion. Do you guys all shop at the same store for those ugly ships?" End quote. They then opened fire with converted asteroid mining equipment. This was the pattern. Every human world they encountered had somehow prepared for their arrival. Civilian ships had been armed with whatever weapons the humans could find. Mining lasers became ship-mounted cannons. Cargo haulers were loaded with explosives and used as kamikaze vessels. Even the humans who clearly had no military training were fighting with a determination that defied logic. "How many casualties did we take?" HFY asked. 3 escort vessels damaged, 1 destroyer temporarily disabled. The humans. "They're getting better at this, Admiral. They're studying our tactics and adapting." That was another disturbing pattern. Unlike other conquered species, who typically gave up after experiencing the hegemony's technological superiority, humans were learning. Each battle taught them something new about hegemony weaknesses. They shared this information freely with other human settlements, creating a network of resistance that grew stronger with each defeat. "Show me the tactical analysis." Zexai ordered. The main screen displayed a map of human space. Red markers showed hegemony-controlled systems. Blue markers showed remaining human settlements. But there were also yellow markers scattered throughout conquered territory. "What are those yellow signals?" Zexai asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Resistance activities and systems we've already pacified," Ythral confirmed. "The humans we defeated are still fighting. They're operating from asteroid bases, hidden installations, and captured hegemony equipment. Yesterday, they destroyed a supply convoy at Ross 128. Zexai studied the display with growing unease. This was unprecedented. When the hegemony conquered a world, it stayed conquered. The local population accepted their new status and integrated peacefully into hegemony civilization. They did not continue fighting from hidden bases. They did not sabotage hegemony operations. They certainly did not broadcast propaganda encouraging other worlds to resist." "Admiral," the communications officer interrupted. "Priority transmission from the Hegemony Council." The screen changed to show the 5 members of the ruling council, their scaled faces showing expressions of concern. High Counselor Vexthai spoke first. "Admiral Zexai, we have reviewed your reports from the human conquest. The council is concerned about the duration and cost of this operation. Previous species have required an average of 18 days to fully integrate. You have been engaged with humans for 6 months. Honored counselors," Zexai began carefully. "The humans are different from previous species. They do not respond to standard psychological pressure. They appear to interpret overwhelming odds as a challenge rather than a reason to surrender." "Explain," demanded Counselor Thyral. Zexai activated a holographic display showing the latest battle reports. "At the Tau Ceti colony, we brought 200 dreadnoughts against 12 human patrol vessels. The logical response would be immediate surrender. Instead, the humans retrofitted civilian transports as torpedo boats and attacked our fleet. They lost all 12 ships but managed to disable 4 of our vessels." "That is acceptable losses," Counselor Gixhai observed. "It should be, honored counselor, but the humans recorded the entire battle and transmitted the tactical data to every other human settlement. They then broadcast a message throughout their space. Tau Ceti here. We're all dead, but we figured out how to hurt them. Target their shield generators with coordinated strikes." "Good hunting." The council members exchanged concerned looks. This was not normal behavior for a conquered species. Furthermore, Zexai continued, "Every human settlement we've encountered has been armed and prepared for our arrival. They're converting civilian infrastructure into weapons of war. Yesterday, we discovered that a human agricultural station had been manufacturing explosive devices using fertilizer components." High Counselor Vexthai leaned forward. "Admiral, are you telling us that farmers are building weapons?" "Yes, honored counselor, and teachers are training children in guerrilla tactics. And scientists are developing new ways to damage our ships using civilian technology. The humans have turned their entire civilization into a war machine." The silence that followed was telling. In 3,000 years of conquest, the hegemony had never encountered anything like this. "What do your psychological specialists recommend?" asked Counselor Zixthai. Zexai hesitated. "They cannot provide useful analysis, honored counselor. Human psychology does not match any known patterns. They appear to become more determined to fight when their situation becomes more hopeless. Our specialists describe it as mathematically irrational behavior." "Admiral," High Counselor Vexthai's voice carried a warning edge. "The hegemony's expansion schedule cannot be delayed indefinitely. Other potential conquest targets are monitoring our progress. If we appear weak or inefficient, it could encourage resistance in previously pacified systems." "I understand, honored counselor, but the humans have already inspired some incidents in Vorthak space. 3 crystal formations have declared independence, claiming they were inspired by human courage." This news clearly alarmed the council. The Vorthak had been peacefully integrated for over a century. If they were being influenced by human resistance— "Admiral," High Counselor Vexthai's voice was firm. "Accelerate your timeline. Bring the full fleet to their homeworld. Make them an offer they cannot refuse. End this quickly." "Understood, honored counselor." The transmission ended, leaving Zexai alone with his thoughts. Bring the full fleet to Earth. Make an offer they cannot refuse. But what if the humans refused anyway? Every previous conquest had taught the hegemony that overwhelming force led to inevitable surrender, but humans seemed to operate under different rules. They fought harder when losing. They sacrificed themselves to inflict minor damage on superior enemies. They turned defeat into lessons for future battles. Admiral Ithral approached again. New transmission from the human homeworld. "Let me hear it." A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in their strange, confident manner. "This is Earth Defense Command, broadcasting on all frequencies. To all human settlements, we know you're fighting hard out there. We've received your tactical reports, and we're proud of you. Keep making it expensive for them. Every ship you damage, every day you delay them, gives us more time to prepare. When they come to Earth, we'll be ready. And we'll show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our home." The transmission ended with what had become the signature sound of human resistance: laughter. Zexhai realized with growing dread that the humans were not just fighting random battles. They were buying time for their homeworld to prepare. Every defeat was actually a strategic delay, gathering intelligence and allowing Earth to strengthen its defenses. The hegemony was walking into a trap of their own making, and somehow the humans were making them pay for the privilege. Admiral Zexhai had seen many impressive sights during his long military career: the crystal spires of Vorthak Prime, the floating cities of the Zephyrian homeworld, the massive orbital rings around the Thexian capital, but nothing compared to what now filled his view screen. 1,500 hegemony dreadnoughts hung in the dark space beyond Earth's moon, their hulls gleaming in the light of the human sun. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust or boil away its oceans, the ultimate demonstration of hegemony power. "Fleet status report," Zexhai commanded. "All vessels in position, Admiral," Commander Yithral replied. "Every dreadnought in the hegemony fleet, every weapon system armed and ready. Total firepower capability exceeds what we used to conquer the last 50 species combined." Zexhai nodded, but felt none of the satisfaction such numbers should have brought. After 8 months of fighting humans, he had learned to expect the unexpected. "What intelligence do we have on Earth's defenses?" Yithral activated the tactical display. The blue-green world of Earth appeared, surrounded by red threat markers. Orbital defense platforms numbering in the thousands. A fleet of approximately 800 vessels, mostly converted civilian ships. Ground-based weapon systems on every continent. And, Admiral... He paused. "What?" "Our long-range sensors indicate the entire human population is involved in the defense effort, not just military personnel. Everyone." Zexhai studied the readings with growing disbelief. "Define everyone." "Children building explosive devices in schools, elderly citizens manning anti-aircraft weapons, scientists converting research facilities into weapon factories. The humans have turned their entire planet into a fortress." This was beyond anything the hegemony had encountered. Other species had professional militaries that fought while civilians evacuated or surrendered, but Earth showed no signs of evacuation. Instead, the population seemed to be moving toward strategic positions. "They must know they cannot win," Zexhai said, more to himself than to his crew. "The mathematics are clear. We have twice as many ships as they do, and each of our vessels outguns their largest ship by a factor of 10. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was elderly, but firm. "This is President Chen of the United Earth Government. We see your fleet, Admiral whoever you are. Impressive light show. Are you here to surrender?" Several bridge officers gasped. No conquered species had ever asked if the hegemony was surrendering to them. Zexhai found his voice. "This is Admiral Zexhai of the Krillian hegemony. You will surrender unconditionally within 1 solar rotation. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world." What came back was becoming disturbingly familiar. Laughter. "Admiral," President Chen's voice carried amusement, "let me explain something about humans. We don't surrender. We don't retreat. And we especially don't surrender to bullies who threaten our home. So here's our counteroffer. You have 1 hour to leave our system before we start shooting." "You cannot be serious," Zexhai replied. "We have 1,500 dreadnoughts. You have inferior technology and a fraction of our numbers. "That's true," Chen agreed. "But you're missing something important, Admiral. You're not fighting for anything. You're just following orders. We're fighting for everything. Our families, our world, our future. That makes all the difference." Zexai was about to respond when alerts began flashing across his bridge displays. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "human ships are moving into attack formation." The tactical display showed Earth's orbital space filling with movement. Human vessels were emerging from behind the moon, rising from the planet's surface, and dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Ships that should have been evacuating civilians were instead moving to engage the hegemony fleet. "This is tactically impossible," Zexai said. "They should be running." "Sir," Ethrall observed, "the humans appear to be operating under different tactical assumptions than any species we've encountered." Through the open communication channel, they could hear activity in the background of Earth's transmission, orders being given, weapons being charged, final messages being recorded. "Admiral," President Chen's voice returned. "Since you're still here, I assume you need this explained in simple terms. We know we're probably going to lose. We know most of us are going to die. But here's what you don't understand. We're going to make it cost you everything. Every ship you lose here weakens you for the next fight. Every day we delay, you gives other species time to prepare. We're not just fighting for Earth, Admiral. We're fighting for the future of the galaxy." The transmission switched to what sounded like a military frequency, a younger voice, crisp and professional. "This is Admiral Rodriguez, Earth Defense Fleet. All ships, this is it. Remember your training, remember your mission, and remember that everyone who has ever lived on Earth is watching. Make them pay for every meter of space. Make them remember that humans don't go quietly." A chorus of responses came back from hundreds of human ships. "Copy that, Admiral." "Roger, Earth Defense." Ready to make history. And then, impossibly, the humans started singing. It began with one voice, then spread to dozens, then hundreds. A song in their primary language, something about standing together against overwhelming odds. The melody was haunting and defiant, unlike anything in hegemony cultural databases. "Admiral," Ethrall said quietly, "what are your orders?" Zexai stared at the display showing human ships moving into what could only be suicide attack formations. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing certain death. Any rational species would have surrendered hours ago. But humans, Zexai was beginning to realize, were not rational in any way the hegemony understood. The singing reached a crescendo, and President Chen's voice cut through it one final time. "Admiral, you wanted our surrender. Here's our answer." Every human weapon in the system fired simultaneously, not at the hegemony ships. They were still too far away for effective engagement. Instead, they fired into empty space, creating a massive display of light and energy that could be seen from every inhabited world in human space. A signal that Earth was still fighting, still defying the inevitable. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we're detecting transmissions from human colonies throughout their space. The same message, repeating on all frequencies." "What message?" "Earth still stands. Earth still fights. If they want our world, they'll have to take it from our cold, dead hands." Zexai closed his eyes and tried to process what he was witnessing. The humans were turning their certain defeat into a symbol of resistance. They were broadcasting their last stand to inspire others to fight. And somehow, Zexai realized with growing horror, it was working. "Sir," Ethrall said urgently, "we're receiving reports from throughout the hegemony. Uprising on Vorthak Prime, rebellion in the Zephyrian systems. 36 client species are declaring independence." The humans had done something unprecedented. They had turned their own destruction into a weapon. "Orders, Admiral?" Ethrall repeated. Zexai opened his eyes and looked at the tactical display. 1,500 hegemony dreadnoughts against a few hundred human ships. It should be the easiest victory in military history. Instead, it felt like walking into a trap. "All ships," Zexai commanded with a heavy heart, "advance to weapons range." The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin, and for the first time in his long career, Admiral Zexai was not certain who would really win. The Battle of Earth began at 14:30 Universal Standard Time when Admiral Zexai's fleet opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced across space, vaporizing the first wave of human ships in brilliant explosions. The hegemony's opening salvo destroyed nearly 50 human vessels in the first 10 seconds. By every military calculation, this should have ended human resistance immediately. Instead, the humans accelerated toward the hegemony fleet. Admiral Commander Ythrael reported with barely concealed shock. "The humans are advancing into our weapons range. They're not retreating." Zexhai watched the tactical display with growing confusion. Standard military doctrine dictated that an inferior force should either surrender or attempt to retreat when faced with overwhelming firepower. The humans were doing neither. They were charging directly into the teeth of the hegemony's guns. "What are they hoping to accomplish?" Zexhai asked. His answer came in the form of a converted human freighter that had been fitted with enough explosives to power a small city. The ship accelerated past the burning wrecks of the first wave, ignored the energy beams cutting through space around it, and rammed directly into the shield generator of a hegemony dreadnought. The explosion was spectacular. When the light faded, the dreadnought was intact, but its shields were down. Immediately, a dozen human fighters swarmed the vulnerable ship, their small weapons targeting critical systems. "Impossible," Ythrael muttered. "They're using suicide tactics to create tactical opportunities." This was the pattern that emerged over the next hour. Humans would sacrifice ships to disable hegemony defenses, then exploit those weaknesses with follow-up attacks. A mining vessel loaded with fusion bombs would ram a dreadnought's weapon array, disabling its main guns. Immediately afterward, human fighters would target the ship's engines and life support systems. Each human attack caused minimal damage individually, but collectively, they were slowly degrading the hegemony fleet's combat effectiveness. Admiral, the fleet coordinator, reported, "We've destroyed over 200 human ships, but we've lost 3 dreadnoughts and have 17 more, with significant damage." Zexhai studied the battle analysis with growing alarm. The loss ratio was heavily in the hegemony's favor, but the trend was troubling. Human tactics were becoming more sophisticated as the battle progressed. They were learning from each attack, adapting their strategies. In real time. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're intercepting human military transmissions." "Let me hear them." The bridge speakers filled with human voices coordinating their attacks. "Eagle Squadron, target the ship with the damaged shield array. Ramming attack full power." "Copy that, Eagle Leader. It's been an honor flying with you all." Freighter New Hope to Defense Command. "We're loaded with mining charges and heading for the big ship in Grid 77. Tell my family I love them." "Understood. New Hope. You're a hero. Make it count." What disturbed Zexhai most was the tone of these communications. There was no panic, no desperation, no pleading for rescue. The humans spoke with calm professionalism, as if deliberately choosing to die was just another tactical decision. "Admiral," Ythrael said quietly, "we need to understand something. Every time we destroy a human ship, they broadcast the tactical data to their remaining forces. They're using their own deaths to teach their allies how to fight us more effectively." This was unprecedented. Defeated soldiers were supposed to surrender, not turn their destruction into intelligence gathering. The battle continued for 18 hours. Wave after wave of human ships threw themselves against the hegemony fleet. Converted civilian vessels packed with explosives, military fighters on one-way missions, even escape pods that had been rigged as guided missiles. And, through it all, the humans kept transmitting. "This is Captain Smith of the destroyer Valiant. Our engines are gone, weapons are down, but we're still alive. Ramming course set for the command ship. For Earth. Cargo hauler Lucky Strike here. We've lost life support, but we've got enough power for one last run. Target their communications array. See you in hell, you bastards." Medical frigate Mercy to all ships. "We're non-combatants, but we're armed with medical supplies converted to explosives. If we're going down, we're taking some of them with us." By the end of the first day, the hegemony had destroyed nearly the entire human fleet, but the cost had been staggering. Over 60 hegemony dreadnoughts destroyed, more than 200 damaged. It was the highest casualty rate in hegemony military history. Admiral Ythrael reported with exhaustion in his voice. "Earth's orbital defenses are still operational. The humans are broadcasting that they're preparing for ground assault defense." Zexhai activated the planetary scan. What he saw defied belief. The entire human population was involved in defensive preparations. Children were running ammunition to anti-aircraft guns. Elderly humans were manning missile batteries. Scientists had converted their laboratories into weapons factories. Sir, the intelligence officer added, our analysis indicates that the humans have prepared their major cities for urban warfare. Every building has been fortified. Every street has been mined. They've turned their homeworld into one massive military installation. And still the transmissions continued to flow from Earth to every human colony in known space. This is Earth. We're still here. We're still fighting. The hegemony has ships, but we have heart. We have courage. And we have each other. Keep fighting humanity. Make them pay for every world, every ship, every life. Show the galaxy what it means to be human. Admiral, the communications officer reported, we're receiving updates from Hegemony High Command. The rebellions are spreading. 17 species have declared independence in the last 24 hours. The Vorthak have completely overthrown our occupation forces. The Zephyrians are mobilizing their entire hive fleet. Zexai realized with dawning horror that the Battle of Earth was never really about conquering one human world. The humans had turned their last stand into a symbol that was inspiring the entire galaxy to rebel. Every human who died fighting had become a martyr. Every ship that rammed a hegemony vessel had become an example of courage. Every desperate transmission had become a rallying cry for freedom. Sir, Ethral said urgently, what are your orders? We can still bombard the planet from orbit. End this quickly. Zexai looked at the tactical display. His fleet could still destroy Earth. The humans had no ships left, no orbital defenses capable of threatening hegemony vessels. Victory was still possible, but as he watched the readings from Earth, millions of humans preparing to fight and die for their world, Zexai realized that destroying Earth would only make the problem worse. The humans would become martyrs, and their example would inspire every enslaved species in the galaxy to fight. The hegemony had walked into a trap, not a military trap, but a psychological one. The humans had made resistance seem not just possible, but noble. Admiral, Ethral pressed. Orders. Zexai looked at his fleet. Battered, damaged, reduced by more than 40%. Then he looked at Earth, where millions of humans waited to die fighting. For the first time in 3,000 years of conquest, Admiral Zexai was not certain that victory was worth the price. The humans had taught the galaxy a dangerous lesson. Some things are worth dying for, and now that lesson was spreading faster than the hegemony could contain it. 3 days after the Battle of Earth began, Admiral Zexai stood in his damaged command center and faced the hardest decision of his 3-century military career. His fleet controlled Earth's orbit. Human resistance had been crushed. The planet's surface showed the scars of orbital bombardment, and the few remaining human ships had been reduced to debris fields circling the world. By every military standard, the hegemony had won. So why did it feel like the greatest defeat in galactic history? Admiral, Commander Wethral approached with the final casualty reports. Fleet status. Update. We've lost 637 dreadnoughts. Another 400 are severely damaged. Effective combat strength is down to 30%. Zexai absorbed the numbers with growing disbelief. The hegemony had brought 1,500 of the most advanced warships ever built to conquer a single world. The humans had destroyed or crippled over 1,000 of them with converted civilian ships and primitive weapons. What about ground resistance? Still active, sir. The humans have retreated to underground facilities and are conducting guerrilla operations. Our occupation forces report that every human settlement is fortified and defended. Children as young as 10 are participating in combat operations. Zexai closed his eyes. In 3,000 years of conquest, the hegemony had never faced anything like this. Other species accepted defeat when their military was destroyed. Humans treated the destruction of their fleet as merely the end of the first phase of resistance. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. Priority transmission from Hegemony High Command. The holographic display activated, showing the 5 council members. Their expressions ranged from confusion to outright alarm. Admiral Zexai, High Counselor Vexthai began without preamble. Explain to us how the conquest of a single primitive world has cost us nearly half our total fleet. Honored counselors, Zexai replied carefully, The humans are unlike any species we have previously encountered. They do not surrender when faced with certain defeat. Instead, they fight harder." "That is not an explanation," Counselor Thyrol snapped. "It is an observation. How did ships powered by primitive fusion engines destroy our most advanced dreadnoughts?" Zexai activated his own tactical display. They used tactics we had never encountered: coordinated suicide attacks, converting civilian vessels into weapons, using their own deaths to gather intelligence. Most importantly, they fought for reasons beyond military calculation. "Explain." "Other species fight to avoid destruction. Humans fight to protect what they value. When we threatened to destroy their world, we gave every human a reason to die fighting." High Counselor Vexthai leaned forward. "Admiral, while you have been conducting this extended operation, the galaxy has erupted into chaos. 43 client species have declared independence. The Vorthak Rebellion has spread to 17 systems. The Zephyrians are attacking our installations throughout their sector. Even the peaceful Kythera are demanding autonomy." The weight of what had happened began to settle on Zexai's shoulders. The human resistance inspired them. "The human example destroyed 3 millennia of careful psychological conditioning," Counselor Gixai added. "Every species we conquered accepted our superiority because resistance seemed impossible. The humans proved that resistance is not about winning, it is about refusing to surrender." "Sir," Ithrol interrupted urgently, "we're detecting new contacts entering the system." The tactical display lit up with dozens of ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. But these were not hegemony reinforcements. "Admiral," the sensor operator reported with shock in his voice, "those ships are broadcasting human identification codes." Zexai stared at the display. "That's impossible. We destroyed the human fleet." "Sir, these appear to be vessels from human colonies throughout their space. They're heading toward Earth." The communication system crackled to life with a familiar voice. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Free Ship Defiance. Broadcasting to all vessels in the Sol system. We're here to take our people home." More voices joined in. "This is the new Olympia from the outer colonies. We're still fighting." Kepler Station reporting. "The hegemony knocked us down, but we got back up. Free ship Tau Ceti here. We brought friends." Zexai watched in amazement as the display revealed the full scope of what was approaching. Not just human ships, but vessels from a dozen different species. Vorthak crystal ships, Zephyrian bioforms, even some smaller hegemony vessels that had apparently been captured or defected. "Admiral," Ithral said quietly, "we're outnumbered. On the surface of Earth, something remarkable was happening. Humans who had been hiding in underground bunkers began emerging, cheering and firing weapons into the air. The orbital bombardment had failed to break their spirit. A transmission came from the planet's surface. "This is President Chen, still alive and still in charge. To our friends approaching the system, welcome to Earth. To the hegemony fleet, your move." High Counselor Vexthai's voice cut through the chaos. "Admiral, withdraw immediately. We are recalling all fleets to defend the core systems." "Understood, honored Counselor." But as Zexai gave the order to retreat, he knew the damage was already done. The humans had achieved something unprecedented. They had survived long enough for help to arrive. More importantly, they had inspired that help to come. The approaching fleet began broadcasting a message to every world in the galaxy. "This is the Free Alliance. Formerly enslaved peoples of the galaxy, the humans taught us something our masters never wanted us to learn. Surrender is a choice, not an inevitability. Freedom has a price, but slavery costs more. To all enslaved peoples, resist. Fight. Make them pay for every world, every ship, every life. We are coming." As the hegemony fleet limped away from Earth, Zexai understood that they had lost far more than ships and soldiers. They had lost the psychological foundation of their empire. For 3,000 years, the hegemony had ruled through the illusion that resistance was futile. The humans had shattered that illusion by laughing in the face of certain death, fighting anyway. "Admiral," Ythrol observed as they jumped to hyperspace, "the humans lost the battle but won something else." "What's that, Commander?" "They proved that losing with honor is better than living without it." Months later, the galactic situation had changed completely. The hegemony controlled fewer than 200 systems, down from over 800. The Free Alliance grew stronger every day as more species chose to fight rather than submit. And at the center of it all was a small blue-green world where humans had once stood against impossible odds and laughed. The last transmission from Earth reached every corner of the galaxy. This is humanity broadcasting from our free world. To every species still in chains, the choice is yours. You can kneel and hope for mercy, or you can stand and demand respect. We chose to stand. The galaxy is wide enough for all of us to be free, but only if we're willing to fight for it. The transmission ended with the sound that had started it all, human laughter. The Krillian hegemony had conquered the galaxy by making surrender seem logical. Humanity's gift to the universe was making resistance seem human. And across the galaxy, species that had forgotten how to fight were remembering how to laugh.